know he calls himself a democratic socialist. What is that? What is democratic socialism? Are you a democratic socialist?
I am a democratic socialist. I'm a dues-paying member to the DSA. Yeah, I'm very big on it. I actually joined because of Bernie Sanders.
Are the Democratic Socialists of America, I guess they are democratic socialists. What does that mean, though?
To me, I think it really embodies exactly what the Democrats should be trying to go for, and it really is bringing working people together, realizing that you can build a movement that moves past just electoral politics. So I see Bernie as the first puzzle piece that brings in all the other people together. So if you elect Bernie Sanders, you're not electing just Bernie, you're electing people like me who are going to be mobilized to be activists and get people together in a movement.
So socialism means nationalizing industries. When you get to the bare bones of it, is that what we want to do democratically? Is that what democratic socialism is? Because I know now with regarding healthcare, he says we're constantly going to follow the Nordic model. So what's going on here? Because they didn't nationalize their healthcare industry.
What I like about democratic socialism involving the workplace is I want it to be democratic, right? So I want people to come to the table, everyone be a shareholder in their company, right? We kind of have a say.
That's democracy, not socialism inherently.
Democratic socialism is inherently democratic because it gives everyone a voice, right? When Bernie Sanders talks about the 1% having all the power, we want to change that, right? Because we are 99% of the population, and we kind of want to make sure that that voice is given. Democratic socialism really embodies that in every sense of the word. So when you talk about nationalizing healthcare, I would say that'd be a good thing because it really gives everyone a seat at the table, gives everyone the same opportunities that should be like a no-brainer.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you now about some controversial things Bernie Sanders has said. In the past, in a Vox interview with Ezra Klein, he called open borders a Koch brothers conspiracy. So are you concerned about the things he's said about immigration in the past?
The Koch brothers conspiracy comments, I do remember that. Yeah. As a democratic socialist, we do believe in open borders. So there are some things that Bernie Sanders does say that you don't know necessarily what's going on. But at the end of the day, I know that he's the only one who's fighting for us. He is a democratic socialist, and to me, that's one of the biggest things that he's done. He's allowed people to look at this platform, right? Like AOC. He's done more as a losing candidate, let's say, than as someone who's actually been elected, right? He's brought in a $15 minimum wage for Disney. He brought it for McDonald's, Amazon workers. So I just see if him being elected, it would not only put democratic socialism to the forefront, but it would get this conversation going so we could all get on the same page and figure out what exactly we want as human beings in this country.
Yeah, I know, for the record too, he has bent the knee on this question regarding immigration. But when you ask him about it, he still acknowledges that it lowers wages for the people who earn the lowest amount. So does that concern you? With more immigrants, it affects disproportionately poor people who have those working class jobs. That's what reduces wages. That's what he said about it in the past. That concern you?
Well, I believe when it comes to immigration, he kind of understands that some people want to take advantage of immigrants.
I mean, it's supply and demand, right? The more workers there are, wages will be suppressed because of that. So
what I like the most about Bernie's immigration policy is just the fact that he wants to stop all deportations. He's the only candidate who has said that, and he won't stray away from it.
I think he said decriminalize border crossings.
Which is something.
But that's de facto open borders, so it's like he's kind of having it both ways in some respects.
Yeah, so I focus more on that aspect of it. I also like the fact that he wants to dismantle ICE, things like that. That's what I focus more on his immigration platform. And at the end of the day, I think that he really is the candidate that's speaking to Latino voters. As a Latino voter myself, everyone in my family is feeling the burn, right? We see that he is the only candidate that is speaking to us.
Bernie fan all around?
Everybody in my family was feeling the burn. I've gotten everybody. People, like back to what you're saying, they're moving to the party left. My family, they were all mostly moderates, right? They were afraid of Bernie, but as the time has gone by, they found that he really is speaking the truth, right? So in all these issues, at the end of the day, you know that he's someone that you can trust.
Can you tell me why you gentlemen out here today?
Because we really support Bernie Sanders. In fact, at the University of Virginia, we're part of a group where we go around canvassing students and helping to organize to get more votes for Bernie.
What about you?
Bernie honestly has the best plan to push our country forward and honestly affect other countries as well. So that's why.
I know there are a lot of Democratic candidates pitching a lot of similar things to Bernie. So why Bernie over an Elizabeth Warren per se?
Because he's been more consistent and his progressive values are more to the left than Elizabeth Warren's, and his aren't means tested like Elizabeth Warren. Also, it's more universal programs. I'm more in favor of that.
Yeah. Exactly the same thing. He's been preaching these since back when he ran in 2016, and then also if you look back at his history, you've seen that he's been this consistent person that's uplifted the values of the people and fought for equal rights. So.
Absolutely. I wanted to follow up on the Elizabeth Warren stuff because a few weeks ago there was a debate. There was a little conflict between her and Bernie. She said that Bernie told her that a female couldn't be president and subsequently that he's sexist or something like that. Do you think that exchange happened? Do you guys think Bernie's sexist? And why would Warren say something like that?
No, Bernie actually advocated for Warren. He wanted Warren to run back in 2016. He wouldn't say something like that. I think Elizabeth Warren knows the writing on the wall, and that's harder for her to get any momentum into this race. So she's trying to do anything that her advisors tell her to do. And that's why I think he's also going to be there in Massachusetts on Tuesday also.
I honestly agree with what he's saying. I personally don't think that Bernie would make that statement, considering that they're both like really good friends. So the fact that
why would she say that then?
Exactly, and then the fact that she went on the debate stage and refused to shake his hand, that was also like a big turnoff for me. And I think for her supporters too, I think they really saw that and they were like, wow, why are you doing that? That kind of like, you know.
I know earlier in the year and coming up on this election, we were talking a lot about reparations. Do you guys think reparations is an important issue that the American government should pursue?
Yes, it is an important issue, but you also have to detail what those reparations are. A lot of candidates out here today, many that dropped out also say we need reparations, but they didn't say exactly what those are. Only Marianne Williamson said exactly what they were. She talked about, what, $200 billion for reparations? You got to be specific about what those are. I know Bernie, his programs are really going to help the black community. Also.
I wanted to ask that because he was one of the only candidates who was against reparations. He wanted to do all the social programs, but not specifically reparations. Does it bother you guys that he's not specifically pro-reparations and just all these, programs instead?
No, not at all, because Bernie, his programs actually benefit the black community the most. I mean, canceling student debt, when black people have most of the student debt in this country, Medicare for all, you know the maternal death rate in America, black maternal death rate. So we really got to tackle those issues. Once you tackle those issues, then we can start talking about more specific issues later down the line, but we got to get everybody together first.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if so, be sure to give me a big thumbs up down below. Enjoy the rest of the video. We are out here today online for this Bernie Sanders rally. I see you're wearing a shirt that says
Defend the sacred.
Defend the sacred, and then you have some paint on your face in the shape of a hand.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the symbolism behind what you got going on here?
The symbolism behind the hand is for the missing and murdered indigenous people, well, women especially, because we are one of the most, how should I say this, sorry. We are constantly ignored from the media, and also our women are always, we're being murdered, we're going missing, and nobody's talking about it. So,
what do you think Bernie Sanders is doing or would do if elected president to help address these issues?
I think he would continue to bring us to the conversation. He's always bringing us up in every single conversation he's talking about. So I firmly believe he would help us in our communities.
Bernie Sanders is similar to some candidates in many ways, dissimilar in other ways. He's the only one who calls himself a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, are you a democratic socialist, and what does that mean? What is democratic socialism?
It just means that everybody can get free health care. We're all treated equal. So
I know there's the socialism part in there. That implies nationalizing industry. Do you think that's what he wants to do, or is he just saying those things?
I think he wants to.
You think he wants to do those things?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, we have a surprise guest here today, Ilhan Omar. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you think about Ilhan Omar?
I don't know really too much about her, but I do love her. I like that there's more women of color representing us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I know this year in politics we talked a good amount about reparations. What do you think about reparations? Are those something important that the U.S. government should look into more?
Yeah.
I know Bernie Sanders is one of the only candidates who doesn't support reparations, though. Is not a top issue for you to be concerned about?
No, not right now. I still need to learn more about it and everything. So, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And last question was, if you had a message for Bernie, what would you tell him?
Mado, which means thank you in my language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In conclusion, anything else you want to mention?
No, not right now.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So we're out here today in Northern Virginia for this Bernie Sanders rally. We're online. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here, what it means for you to be out here?
Well, there's a lot of things that he has on his platform that are important to me. One of the biggest things that I'm excited about is that he has a bunch of millennials.
A lot of young people.
Yeah, a lot. And I am a grandmother with 3 grandchildren. That one of the things that I'm concerned about is the planet and what they're going to inherit. So I'm happy to see that so many young millennials are willing to stand up. And then, of course, there's healthcare for all. I'm going to be 65 this year, and I finally get to go on Medicare. But I feel that so many people don't have that privilege because right now it's a privilege, not a right. And I believe that Bernie has the right message when he's saying it's a right. everything that's on his platform, I'm for it.
So I also want to ask you, because you are in some interesting attire, what is the symbolism behind this Bernie now with the star? You're also wearing the hat with the star. What does this mean?
To me, it means that one of the things that really stood out to me was a revolution. And everything that's ever been done and changed in this world has come about not just with young people, but with revolutions. And to me, it's like the Viva la Bernilución. Anyway, so to me, I thought it's like, if we're going to make changes, we do have to have a revolution. I'm not talking
like
about...
a real revolution, or what's,
yeah, well, a revolution... Look around you. This is, to me, a revolution. You know, it's not going out and getting guns and shooting people or killing rich people with
because some people say eat the rich, and I don't know, it sounds like violence, but
hey, what was Bruce, eat the rich. What's the name of the author? Eat the Rich?
Oh, it was a modest proposal.
Okay, I'm familiar with that. But I wanted to follow up and ask you, because it's related to this revolution stuff. People have started to be a little bit concerned about Bernie because he talks very highly of dictatorship regimes, such as the one that existed in the USSR. He praised the Castro regime. Does that stuff concern you, that he talks so highly of these evil people?
No, not at all, because one of the things is that we have to take the good with the bad. It's obvious that there's a lot of dictators and things that have done very bad things. But by the same token, when people talk about the socialist movement, I think the United States is the biggest socialist country there is. And if you look at all the democratic socialist program we have, where do we get rid of the first one?
You said you take the good with the bad, but do we draw a line with how bad and horrible a regime is? So the Castro regime was extremely homophobic. They killed a lot of dissidents. Same things with the USSR. He also mentioned some polite things about China. So does it concern you that he says good things about evil regimes?
No. To me, it's like when you point out things that are positive about a regime, that doesn't take away all the bad things they've done.
Sure, but that's like saying, Nazi Germany wasn't too bad. They built the Autobahn. You have to give credit to where credit is due. So I don't want to give credit to evil people.
No. And,
sure, but I think it's obfuscating from these people doing a lot of evil things. People do good things so they could point to this. Hey, look, I'm not all bad. I did this one good thing.
Well, if we're going to go there, somebody actually loved Hitler. I mean, whether it was his mother or his evil...
and that doesn't mean he's a good guy. So exactly.
No,
so taking the good with the bad, I feel like we're putting our fingers on the scale.
I just think that we need to look at things objectively, because if we're going to just start pointing out, oh, well, this guy did something really, really bad, therefore we shouldn't look at anything that they did that was positive. If we're going to look at the literacy program, and so that is a positive thing. Where he killed all these people, for that matter, Che Guevara. I mean, yeah, exactly. But
I want to ask, though, last question. Do you think America is a force for good in the world?
I think that we're involved in too many things. I think that we want to be like the to-go person, and sometimes I think that maybe we should let some other countries be.
So not a good force in the world? Not a force for... She'll answer and then I'll ask.
Yeah, to me, it is that what's they're actually trying to do and what actually gets accomplished.
Sure. So not overall a force for good in the world.
Not overall a force for the bad. Okay. So I mean, it is what it is.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. In Northern Virginia, you have the Bernie Sanders sign. Can you tell me why you're out here today?
Mostly because I believe in Bernie's policies, and if he were to become the Democratic nominee for president, for the first time in my life, I would be not voting for the lesser of two evils. It seems like that every time I go to the polls, even as young as I am, but I mean, that's... Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of people about it. Bernie Sanders constantly calls himself a democratic socialist. So I wanted to ask, are you a democratic socialist? And what does that mean?
I'm not sure if I personally identify as a certain sort of system, but I do know with democratic socialism, you're not talking about communism, and you're not talking about traditional socialism, because you're trying to blend in the capitalistic elements of our economy that do work.
Do you think he's purposefully a little bit obfuscating what it truly means, though? Because he hasn't come out and said exactly what it means. He has the democracy in there and then throws the socialist too. Do you think he's obfuscating?
There was a clip of him on Fox News, I believe it was, or maybe it was CNN, one of his town hall segments where he tried to explain it as best we can. The basis of it is to be able to use properly allocated tax dollars for a specific purpose that will help the most people in the best way.
But that's not what socialism is. Inherently.
Not inherently, but I mean, socialism has been twisted from our society.
And we're a mixed economy, too. So.
Yes, we've always been. And there's a lot of people who don't seem to understand that nowadays, which is just,
we already have Medicaid, Medicare. Besides that stuff, I also wanted to ask you, what's the biggest issue that you're concerned about in the current day?
For me, it's mostly health care.
So he wants to do Medicare for all?
Yes.
This is the most, I haven't read his whole plan, but I know details about it.
Okay.
I know he seeks to abolish private health insurance.
Yes.
Is that concerning you at all?
No, I wanted to thank you for asking that. A lot of other candidates are going for this public option.
Yes.
I want everybody, just imagine if you could, a public option where you pay somewhere around 4% of your income. It's a sliding scale with Bernie's bill, but it's around 4% for most people. There's charts and stuff. You can look it up. And you would get dental, vision, full health insurance, anything that a doctor deemed medically necessary would be covered. However, you wouldn't have to pay premiums, co-pays, all that stuff.
I know Bernie likens his healthcare system to the ones in Canada or Britain or the Nordic countries, but what he's proposing isn't what they have there.
It's not.
So why do you think he's saying those things if it's not what he's proposing?
Because he's trying to get people to wrap their head around it.
But he's selling something that's not what he's actually selling. He's saying it's something different than what he's selling.
He's not lying about anything,
But
though.
it's not what the Nordic countries have. The Nordic countries don't have a single-payer system.
No, they don't quite. A lot of them have not-for-profit insurance.
But that's what he says they do. He says we want to have it like they have it in the Nordic countries. So if it's not apples to apples, why is he saying that?
Because he's trying to wrap people around the idea of no co-pays.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like he's selling something that's not, selling something different than what he's really proposing, though.
No, he's not. If you want to, you can read the bill.
Yes.
It's very well put together. It's, I believe, it's less than 500 pages.
Are you Bernie or bust?
Mostly, yes. As I said, he's the candidate where I want to see him on the ticket so I don't have to vote for the lesser of two evils like I always have.
I want to ask you now about controversial things about Bernie, though. So recently he had good things to say about Cuba, and in the past he's had good things to say about the USSR and the government in China. Do you think it's odd or concerning that he has good things to say about dictators around the world sometimes, or he kind of obfuscates and says, you know, they have high literacy rate in Cuba is the specific thing I'm quoting. Is that a concern?
Oh, not at all. When we live in a world where there's a lot of fake news going around also, I think we have to be truthful about the situation. If there's some truth to say about a dangerous, like, dictatorship, you can put that truth out. But Bernie's been clear. He condemns those dictatorships. He condemns North Korea, Kim Jong-un. He condemns Fidel Castro. He condemns President Xi in China. So he's being consistent on these issues.
But he has kind words to say about them, and it's just odd that he condemns them, but he doesn't say that vocally. He just says they have high literacy rates. He talks about a good job in China for something. So,
I mean, yeah. But when I think about it, it's more so like you have to know these leaders. The U.S. has to have good relations with the leaders. You can't just go around condemning them all the way. Mm-hmm. But another thing that I look at on that issue, the United States has a history of being involved with other, like, countries' elections, for example. So we're not all that pure either.
In that vein, do you think America is a force for good on the world stage?
I think we're a force for our own interests, and those interests include going into other countries and trying to prop them up with weapons for war or send them money for evil deeds, and that's what we're going to do.
In general, an act of good on the world stage or an act for bad? Or like, are we good on the world stage or evil, do you think?
I don't think it's a clear-cut answer like that. I mean, we can do some good, but we can do some bad. So
do you think we've done more good or harm in the world then?
Harm.
And what do you think? Do you think the United States has done more good or harm?
Honestly, I would say harm in the sense that, you know, I feel like a lot of our conflicts could have been avoided. I feel like there are a lot of things that we've, like, asserted ourselves into in the hopes that we're gonna do a good thing, and then as a result, at some point something goes wrong, and then as a result of that, we end up doing more harm, even if we didn't intentionally do that. So.
One final question for you guys. Ilhan Omar is going to be one of the speakers here today. There has been some controversy surrounding Ilhan Omar. According to Yahoo News, the FBI is investigating if there was some immigration fraud with her marrying her brother. Have you heard about those allegations, and is that a concern at all?
No, I heard those allegations. Really, I just don't see any fruit to them, really. Ilhan
Omar, the FBI is investigating.
Yeah, of course, let the investigation carry out. But Ilhan Omar, she's a really fabulous person. She's going out here in the communities, really listening to people, and she really has a great message to say. That's why she endorsed Bernie, because she's really also consistent, and she brings a new and unique voice to the House that we need right now. I'm not looking at any of those conspiracies or those issues right now. I mean, people can look into them all they want, but what I'm looking at right now is Ilhan Omar's genius.
Absolutely. You know what, I'll pivot a little bit there because it's about a surrogate. I know Linda isn't Ilhan isn't exactly a surrogate, but Linda Sarsour is. Linda Sarsour is a surrogate of Bernie Sanders. She's been called anti-Semitic in the past. Are you concerned that he might have some anti-Semitic surrogates in the campaign?
Not really. I heard that about what you just said about her. I haven't looked that much into it, to be honest with you, but
if she did say some bad things, would it be bad that Bernie Sanders brought her on as a surrogate?
If she said some bad things, and I think that she should own up to it and come out. Has she done that in the past?
I think she stood by her statements too.
Okay.
And here's the thing, it's not only coming from, this is from a liberal and leftist perspective too. She was on the Women's March board, and then she was asked to resign, and she was kind of forced out. So this isn't like a right-wing attack against her. This is coming from people from the Women's March calling her anti-Semitic and asking her to step down. So,
well, I mean, we can tackle that issue also. I just want everything to be even on both sides. And also, you can speak about the Bernie campaign with surrogates, to be sure. But then you look at some of these other campaign surrogates, especially for Pete Buttigieg or Elizabeth Warren, attacking a lot of the people of color on Bernie's campaign, like Nina Turner and Breanne Joy Gray. So we really got to make sure everybody in this political process, this campaign, can come together to see these issues and not do petty attacks, racial attacks, identity attacks, anything like that.
Gentlemen, thank you guys so much for your time. Enjoy the rally. Thank you so much for your time. Out here today in Northern Virginia, I see you have the Bernie Sanders sign. We're here at the rally. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here, what it means for you to be out here?
I support Bernie's policies. I like what he has to say. I like how he's able to get people moving and get people inspired to vote. And I support his policies on medical issues and on social issues, foreign policy. Not completely 100% on Bernie yet. I'm maybe like 90%.
I know he calls himself a democratic socialist. Are you a democratic socialist? What do you think democratic socialist means nowadays? Why does he call himself that?
He calls himself a democratic socialist because he is, and I think most people in the country are, even if they don't think that they are.
What is a democratic socialist?
I mean, if you like your Social Security when you get old, that's a social program. If you rely on Medicaid or Medicare, those are social programs, and our country was rebuilt based on social programs following the war.
Does it mean nationalizing industry at all, or is it just kind of a welfare system, helping people who can't pay their bills like that?
It's not necessarily a welfare system.
Okay. So, but is it that nationalizing industry? Because doesn't socialist kind of imply that?
Not necessarily, no. Bernie Sanders is not there to nationalize industry. He's never said he was. He's not a communist, as people are saying he is.
I know when he was younger, he said he wanted to nationalize a lot of industries, but that was maybe 20 or some odd years ago. He said he wanted to nationalize all the banks. He didn't do that, but
no, I don't think that's what he wants to do as president.
Absolutely. I also wanted to ask you, I know that he has some interesting surrogates. One of his surrogates is Linda Sarsour. Do you think it's good that he's bringing on people like Linda Sarsour to be surrogates for him?
I don't know who that is.
Oh, okay, so it's not even an issue that you're really concerned about. I also know that a year or so ago, he had an interview with Vox, Ezra Klein from Vox, where he called open borders a Koch brothers conspiracy. So, his record on immigration is a little bit dicey. Are you concerned about that? Is immigration an issue you're concerned about?
No, I think people need to relax about immigration. I think Trump has put into everybody's head that immigrants are out to rape us and murder us and stuff. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. There's no proof.
Are you concerned about high levels of immigration suppressing wages for our lowest earners in the United States?
No.
But Bernie Sanders used to say that about mass migration.
Okay, that's not happening.
Okay. One last question. Bernie Sanders has some positive choice words for some questionable regimes, i.e. the Castro dictatorship. He also had some nice things to say about the USSR. Does it concern you that he says those things about those countries?
Castro was a terrible, terrible ruler.
Dictator.
But his literacy program worked.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't think Bernie is very clear that he's not in favor of any type of totalitarianism or any type of dictator at all, or Castro. All he was saying was that literacy program worked, and people are just kind of taking that out of context. Sure. That's all he said.
Do you think America's a force for good in the world?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you think Bernie Sanders thinks that as well?
Yes.
Okay, good, because it sometimes seems like he has very good words to say about our enemies, but not too many good things to say about our allies and the country itself. So
Bernie is always very clear that America is a force for good. I just think he doesn't want to be invading countries and staying there for 20 years, you know? I don't understand why people want to, you know, there was this thing like during the George W. Bush administration where like we were going to invade countries and spread democracy.
But to be fair, Bernie Sanders voted in favor for the war in Afghanistan, so.
He did, because that was a good war to have, just not for 20 years. It was the Iraq war that he voted against.
Sure. But I know he likes to brag about voting against the Iraq war, but then he votes for the war in Afghanistan. It's like, you know, be consistent, be against the war or not. So
again,
having it both ways, aren't we?
The war in Afghanistan was okay to do. The war in Iraq was not.
You supported the war in Afghanistan?
I mean, I was like 8 years old.
Sure.
I was like 10 years old, so I can't really say I supported it. It was, you know, again, we've been there 20 years. I'm 27 years old.
So ever since you were a kid,
yeah, so I can't say that. But I do remember that it was very clear during the Iraq war that there was no reason to go there. And I remember very clearly that it was pretty common knowledge that was all a hoax.
So only fight justifiable wars is the Bernie platform then?
I think so. I honestly think we should have wrapped up Afghanistan. I think Bernie thought that we were going to wrap up Afghanistan within a year or two.
It's funny mentioning because we just wrapped up with the Taliban. We just reached some sort of peace agreement with the Taliban. But I just wanted to ask you last thing. Is there anything else you wanted to mention in conclusion?
I just want to mention, I think that we need to get rid of Trump at all costs. I don't even think it's that like polarizing. If you're a conservative Christian, Trump is like the worst thing for you. I'm a Christian. I think he's the opposite of Christianity. His views on immigration are fascist. He wants to, his bans on Muslim countries, immigrants coming here is just not only wrong, it's disgusting. And I think that even if you're a moderate Republican, I think there's nothing better for you to do right now than turn against Trump. I mean, there's just no excuse for the way he talks, the way he talks about women, the way he talks, you know, makes fun of people with disabilities. It's disgusting. I don't know what's wrong, like what's going on where people think that's okay right now. It's not okay. It's never been okay and never will be okay. And we need to stop that.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. If this is your first time here, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay barely informed.